The following is an extract from Good News Week 2025 at the Lakes.
And there's about 60 talks up there that people can...
Yeah, roughly. Yep.
And I know there's a few people in the audience here, so not what's your favourite one, because I'm sure it was many of the ladies here. What's a memorable talk that you reckon, that'd be, if I mention that, people will jump on and want to have a listen?
Yeah, I don't know if people will jump on, but two that I love that have shaped me as a person. One would be Mel Sheath, who is the sister-in-law of... She's a Sheath.
Yep.
Mel is the...
There's a David down there.
Mel is the woman that I go, who do I want to be like when I grow up? Of course, my mother, who is here. But Mel is I want to be like Mel Sheath when I grow up. Just that lovely, beautiful Christian woman. And so she came on and we spoke about... I can't remember if we called it We Are Sinful Mums or What is a Good Mum. Can't remember the talk, but pretty much my question is, well, what is a good mum? And so chatting that with her. The other one is Leslie Ramsey, who is another beautiful Christian woman, very wise.
Yep.
And I think something I struggle with is maybe like, how do I spend my time, or identity stuff, and I can't even remember what her talk is called, to be honest. But just the real challenge and seeing the value and seeing the importance of staying at home with your kids. I personally am one who... I love staying home with my kids. They are beautiful, but I love working and I love achieving something. And so, Leslie's...
So that balance between the two. All right, so there are two that might have triggered your interest.
Yeah,
and you
I'd
can
go and
jump
have a
on
listen to them.
and have a look at that. So you're going to talk to us today about mum guilt or unmet expectations.
Yes.
I'm going to jump off the stage, but
great.
We had a chat. You're okay at the end of this. We might, if people we might grab a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
Time allowing. So if questions come up, you might want to jot it down. Maybe we can have them from the floor, but if not, people could grab you afterwards as well.
No worries.
All right, I'll leave you with it.
Thank you. Well, it has been... I should have got my talk ready. It has been a real privilege getting to chat to all of these women about motherhood. So, yes, I have spoken to probably 60, 70 women and heard their experience. And I think it's given a great insight into what the ordinary woman does go through in this stage of life. But I think what it taught me was that every mother, but really I think everyone, is going through something, struggling with something, being grown, being challenged by. As I had all of these conversations over the course of the show, I noticed that there was a few things that underlie the hard things that we go through. That would be our desire for control and pain, the pain of unmet expectations, of feeling inadequate, overwhelm, anxiety. There is something about motherhood that seems to bring out our fears and failures and rock the boat of who we thought we were or who we could be. But before I go more into those observations, I'm very conscious that there's a lot of different people in this room. So men, though this is a talk on motherhood, I really do think these underlying hurts and fears are part of parenthood, so you may still relate. But if anything, I'd hope that it gives insight into the mothers in your life and what they could be going through. And I'm also very conscious that there are people here who are probably desperate to be a parent, desperate to be a grandparent, and just feeling the hurt that can come with that. And if I've learnt through anything from chatting with all of these women and through my own experience, is that the pain of and the grief that comes with singleness, infertility, miscarriage, recurrent loss, that longing to be a grandparent is quite crushing and traumatic. So I just wanted to pause and say that we grieve with you, I grieve with you, that it's not meant to be like this. I think that it is a real reflection of the broken world that we live in. And so part of my own story has been how God has been working in the pain of this area in my own life. And if I could give any advice, it would be to look for who Jesus is and what he came to do, because there are answers to our questions and our hurts, and there is hope. But if you need to slip out to protect yourself, please do that. My concern is whenever I get up to talk about motherhood, that I'll be adding to your grief. But I have prepared this with those people in mind because I think at the root of it, what we're all struggling with is reconciling the pain of our plans not eventuating the way we wanted them to. So yes, if you need to do that, please do. But I also just want to be here if it's helpful to honour your walk and share your story. Please do reach out and I'd love to hear from you. But I have been asked to come and talk about motherhood. And here I am, and I'm talking about guilt and unmet expectations. Who would have thought that to be a huge part of motherhood when we dreamed of being one? I certainly didn't. So I recorded an episode with my friend Sarah on mum guilt, and I don't think I even have to do too much explaining about what that actually is, do I? Because it's nearly a rite of passage these days. And it's a special kind of guilt because it's not the regular guilt of I've done something wrong and I feel bad about it. It's this pervasive feeling of doing the wrong thing, the wrong way, and just like I am royally stuffing up my kids in the long run. So Sarah and I were talking about how we went into parenting full of high expectations. We had our Pinterest boards of cute outfits, and we knew all about sleep schedules and introducing solids, and we'd even read stuff about teenagers, and we were going to do a really good job with that, heaps better than our parents. We knew what we were doing. We had our great expectations, but we also had our grand plan to execute it. But the mum guilt is there right from the beginning. My planned water birth is now an emergency caesarean. The endlessly patient, calm mother I will be is over on night 2 when I'm asking you to please go to sleep. My Montessori play-based child is now an iPad watching Bluey binger. It does not take us long to learn the truth that motherhood often feels like failure after failure. And not just failures. We cannot meet the expectations that we put on ourselves, the picture of the mother we built to be, but also the expectations put on us by other people. This world around us is full of bloated expectations for women, and even though, or mothers, women, but even though logically we can reconcile that no one can live up to these contradicting standards, it's nearly impossible not to internalise them. And the standards aren't all bad on their own, but there is an assumption beneath the standards that we can control our circumstances. And yet we want the best life for our kids, so we keep hustling to try and do better, be better. We know what we need to do to be the perfect wife and mum, but we can't seem to meet these high expectations. And so the mum guilt creeps in. And over time, it feels like our failures just become more apparent and it becomes so emotionally draining. There's this woman I used to follow on Instagram. She's a gentle attachment-based sleep consultant, and she actually had some pretty good advice. And sometimes she'd run this segment called, I'm still a good mum, but. And so the first time I saw this, I entered into the little box. I'm still a good mum, but I haven't given my 2-year-old breakfast for 4 days because I thought my husband had. Well, I cannot tell you how silly I felt when I saw the other people's responses. I saw, I'm still a good mum, but I forgot their dummy when we went to the shops. I'm still a good mum, but I gave them an hour of screen time because I'm so nauseous this pregnancy. What? How did we get to this point? Week after week, I would see responses from women where they saw giving their kids McDonald's or getting mad or using Glad wrap or serving toast for dinner as an epic motherhood failure. How have we gotten to the point where women are feeling so much guilt and shame over the things that are not what makes you a good mum? And how are we supposed to cope when we have actual, real, epic motherhood failures? When we're perpetually angry and scream at our kids? When we're not supportive when they need us to be? When our kids on meds for anxiety and their psychologist tells us it's because they're too scared to disappoint us? When we're overcritical? When we choose what we want for our life instead of what's best for them? When we set a poor example? When we over-discipline or don't discipline at all? When we shame them? So I was listening to a parenting seminar a while ago. It might come up on the screen. And it said this. As parents, we are looking and searching for the right answers. Lots of the conventional wisdom is giving strategies and tactics, but today the narrative is not looking for the right answer, but being the right answer, being our child's best bet. Sounds pretty nice in theory, doesn't it? But listen again. It's not looking for the right answer, but being the right answer. Being our child's best bet. And I want to be that. But I am a limited and a flawed human. How am I supposed to cope when I cannot be my child's right answer all the time? I won't always be their best bet. I will fail them. And in fact, I'll probably consistently hurt them more than other people just because I'm their primary caregiver and I'm there all the time. Being told that we're their right answer for success, no one is going to live up to that standard. And that can come with real pain. When my third child was born, I had 3 and 3.5 years at that point. Rough pregnancy, emotional year, husband was working long hours, and I was wrecked. And as exhausted as I was so determined to meet my parenting goals because I desperately still want, to be a good mum. I worked hard at creating beautiful play experiences. I'd actually engage with my kids. I'd limit screen time, cook healthy meals. I was really into essential oils and had a chemical-free home. I loved gardening, and keyword here is tried to grow organic food. I aimed to be that gentle mum, and I had emotion charts that I made myself, a sweet sing-song voice, ton of parenting one-liners, and for all the effort, I was ticking the boxes of what I had created a good mum checklist to be. But I tell you, beneath it all, I had this undercurrent of rage, anger, bitterness, boredom, resentment, envy. Oh, my kids would just be kids and I would lose it. Spilled coffee or ignoring my instructions would result in a tantrum from me, or toddler fights over TV shows would see me spewing words about ungratefulness and selfishness. And in these moments, I knew I was being unkind and unfair to my kids, but I couldn't control it. I was taking my anger out on them. I could pull a list of reasons to justify why they deserved to be told off, but at the root of it all was my own desire for control, my own self-centeredness, and life was just not feeling how I thought it would. It was not going how I wanted. Now, we don't really talk about anger or wanting control in our culture. I think that everyone would agree that motherhood is a hard slog and probably brings out the worst in us. But I think we're given the solution. We're in charge of our lives. Don't like something, cut it out, or work hard and it will change. That we can manifest who and what we want to be. That if we just worked that little bit harder and smarter to do that bit better, we would finally gain control of our circumstances and all of our problems and worries and fears would disappear. The answer to the mum losing it like I was would be, well, you need to get up before the kids and have your coffee then. A meal plan would really help you so that you're not so stressed and that you're more focused. Your kids are bored because you're not rotating toys enough or offering enough sensory experiences, and you're probably so tired because your diet's full of sugar. And if you worked out more, you would have the energy you needed to get through the day. Hey, you wouldn't be so stressed if you were meditating. Why don't you try tapping and manifest more wealth to make that financial strain easier? For sure, there is value in these suggestions of being more organised and adjusting things in your lifestyle. I'm not saying they're not wise, but there is a lie that undercurrents that thinking. Do this and you will have control. Do that and you will be a better mother. We work so hard and strive to do whatever it takes to put away the anger and stress. We dig deep to muster up patience and peace. If we could just get that little bit more control over our home, we wouldn't be so temperamental. So we try that new meal prep strategy and we put that quote as our screensaver and we try that discipline technique from that reel that we saw and, follow the latest cortisol lowering routine to make 2025 a breeze. But as time goes on, all of these things fail us. We run out of patience. The peace we are striving for wears thin and we fall back into the cycle of guilt and frustration. Don't we spend our time, our money, our emotions, our energy chasing the things that give us control over our lives? That if we could just find that magic formula, motherhood would be easier and would finally be patient and kind and be that parent that we're striving to be. But no matter how hard we try, We cannot seem to tame that thing inside of us screaming out for control and success. So what do we do with that? Is the answer just be better? Learn to live with the failure? What will we do with this need for control and not being able to have it? And what do we do with the guilt? Because here's the tricky thing. We should feel guilty sometimes because we are guilty. There is mum guilt that is false guilt. But there is mum guilt that is healthy because it's showing us the areas in our life that we need to grow on and change. It's the true guilt of I've done something wrong and I feel bad about it, like me losing it with my kids. But then there is that other guilt that we feel that does condemn us too harshly. And I think that guilt is going to come down to the lens at which we look through life and the benchmark that we're performing to. So I mentioned at the beginning that I go to EV, I am a Christian, and I think to put this as honestly and as gently as I can, I don't know how you get through motherhood, but really life, without, and the guilt and the pain that comes with it, without the hope that the Bible offers. So Christianity began based on the fact we want to be in control and not God. And the first part of the Bible is a bunch of books telling story after story after story of people who tried to keep this perfect standard but couldn't. And the Bible is so clear that God sent Jesus to live and keep this perfect standard for us. And it also promises that anyone who trusts in him and what he did, that God will look at that and not what we bring to the table. And so it is so sweet because it acknowledges that we can't, but that we don't have to be perfect. And so for the Christian mum here, can I remind you, you are not called to be a perfect mum. That is not our identity. You have been entrusted with a lot. So work hard, do your best, but don't fear that you're not meeting a standard that our world, or more likely yourself, has put on you. We can trust the promises of the Bible that God is working in and through our weak mothering, that he is the best for our children, not us. So point them to him as their best bet, because sweetheart, you're not it. So to live this life without this hope, I think you are left being the answer to having to keep trying that new thing, trying to improve, because at the end of the day, you are relying on yourself and your effort, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it would be really exhausting. And I think that there's things that we can all do to lighten the load of motherhood. Therapy and understanding your own triggers, your own hurts, why you act the way you act, parent the way you parent. The Circle of Security is a great book. I'm pretty sure there's even workshops out there that you can do, and all the research to back up just being a good enough parent. Limit your online influences, prioritise self-care, get the meal plan if that's what's going to help you. Stay up to date on the latest parenting research, because there's always going to be something new that you could try and might work for your family. Evaluate your guilt. Does it come from a real mistake that you need to address? Or is this guilt that you can let go because it's not measuring up because it is measuring up to a standard of comparison or fear or an unrealistic expectation? It's really easy to lose sight of what matters in motherhood. But here's the thing. The value that you bring to your children's lives is not measured by how well you stick to the latest trend or some sort of checklist. The research is clear, but I think more importantly, we know this inherently in ourselves. Our children need us. They need us to be there, to provide, to teach, and to love, but they need us to be ourselves. You are the architect of your child's world, and your unique contribution will be richer than I think even you dare to dream. And do you know why I know that? Because I look around this room and I can see that everybody here has something extraordinary to offer, because you have wonderful qualities too. Teach them to be you. Maybe it'll be your creativity or your love of nature or the wonderful way you make boring things fun or how you see beauty in imperfection or how you care for people or how you work really hard or you're amazing at fixing things or you've got great organisational skills. Your laughter, your patience, your kindness, your way of solving problems, they're the gifts that you give your kids. Teach them to be you. Yep, you might not be gentle in your response to them at times. And you're not going to follow the latest trend of parenting perfectly. And you are going to make some really big and hurtful mistakes as a parent. But you are a real person too, a person who is still learning to say sorry when you didn't talk the way you wanted to, a person who still says, I made a mistake, but I'm going to try it differently next time. And isn't that far more of a rich experience for your kids to learn from a mum who is real and not the one that just gets it right the first time every time? Teach them to be human, flaws and all. And so if I could, I would encourage you to check out the Bible. Things like Summer Series and Life that this church offers are really helpful, very easy places to start. But if anything, please do not buy into the lie that anxiety and guilt are part and parcel to motherhood, because they are terrible motivators. And if there is a deep turmoil in your experience of motherhood, you're deserving of help to work through that. It's actually possible to mother from a place of peace and some form of confidence, and it's not wrong to. But I'd love every mother, every father here to be confident that you are doing the best you can for your kids. Thank you.